Welcome. My name is Chris Alexander. I'm a reference librarian at the Saratoga Springs Public Library. I'm delighted that you could join us this evening for the program With the Band, featuring Billy Cole of Cole's Woodwind Shop. Billy has written an excellent memoir, and it's called With the Band also. And if you haven't read it already after tonight's program, you're going to really want to do that. So tonight, Billy is going to be interviewed by Angelina Valente. She's a talented local musician and songwriter, and she's known Billy for a long time because her family owns Creative Sparks, which is located directly across Phila Street from Cole's Woodwind store. We are recording tonight, but don't worry, we're just recording the speaker and the images. We won't record anybody at home. And you are welcome to put your questions in chat. And at the end, we'll get to questions, or at the end, if you want to change the settings so you can unmute yourself, and then you can ask your questions out loud. So just a moment, I'm going to spotlight our speakers. Okay, and at this point, I guess we're ready to get started. Angelina, you may take it away.
Cool. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Angelina Valente. I'm so excited to be here. I've gotten to know Bill very well the last few years. So this is a really cool honor for me. And reading this book, just really, I was like, wow, who was this person I didn't even realize was right across the street from me this whole time? So yeah. So hi, Bill. You want to? I'll throw it over to you for a second.
Oh, Angelina. Thanks for having me tonight, and welcome everyone. This is really great of the library to host this interview, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So yeah, so I guess we'll dig right into it. You ready? Feel good?
Yeah, go for it.
Feel good? All right, let's go. So first question I had for you was, I'm always interested in what makes someone want to write a book. Like, after all these years, you have all these stories. Why now? Part one, part two. What was your process like? Are you one of those people who goes into a cabin in the woods for 6 months and hides out all alone and does their thing and scribbles it all out and comes out emerged with a whole book, or bit by bit? What's that kind of like for you?
Pretty much all of that. I've always had stories to tell about the shop right from the get-go. I mean, I'm close to 45 years in business, so collected quite a few stories, but in my mind. It wasn't until about 20 years ago I decided to start writing some things down, really for my family, my children, grandchildren, and ancestors. And I have to say that that I actually have the diary of my great-great-grandfather when he sailed from Bristol, England, to Montreal and then thence to Albany, as he said. And so how wonderful is to be able to hold that in your hand, a handwritten diary. And
wow.
So that was one of the things that really motivated me to do something like this. And knowing that my life has been so wonderful, really, and I've been very blessed. So I thought I'd start writing these down. About 20 years ago, I started writing my memoir. It was soon after, it was soon after the great Barry sax player Nick Brignola passed away. And I said, I really need to write this stuff down because he'll go down in history as one of the greatest jazz players of all time. And so that's how it begun. As far as how I do it, I don't pick the stories, they kind of pick me as I remember them. So remember, I don't have anything written down. So as I reflect on a certain story or a certain person, wow, they were cool. I have to write that down. And most of my writing early in the morning when I have most of my wits about me. And it's,
yeah.
Most of this book was written about between 4 and 7 o'clock in the morning.
Nice. Oh my God. Nice. That's great. As I understand that as a songwriter myself, it's kind of like morning or night. That's when it happens for me. There's never a middle of the day good time to just be writing anything.
It's nothing like that quiet time for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, my next question, you have so many stories in this book, so many, and I'm wondering, and I'm sure you have so many that didn't end up in there. I'm wondering which ones, why did you pick certain ones and leave out others? What kind of made you choose what you chose?
First of all, the stories in there are the most important to me, because those are the ones I think about. So perhaps that's why they came to be. But then I've thought of other stories since then, and how could I forget that? That's important to me also. And so at the last minute, I put 3 or 4 new stories in it at the last minute. And if you notice any mistakes in the book, it's after Ken had his hands on the book. And so for that, I apologize to Ken Drum, because he painstakingly went over that book for about a year. So it is a process. It's still, we're still adding stories, and I have enough for another book, literally. So.
Well, we can't wait for part 2. That's awesome. So yeah, so like Chris said, we met each other working across the street from each other for so long. And it's interesting for me. I've always actually thought it's kind of cool that I've worked across the street with my mom and you've worked across the street with your son. And I just felt like this very cool connection to you guys that I thought was always really neat. And so I know what it's like being the daughter working with the mother. So I'm wondering what it's like from the perspective of like the father getting to work with the son. Like what is that like for you?
Well, of course, it's very special. And as I get older, I realize just how special it is. The customers will always comment on how it's so cool that your son works for me. But Billy has been hanging out at the shop since he's a year old. And so it was really a natural process. And you'll see some of these pictures there's Billy at my 907 19th Street. Notice the patches on the floor that Lou Davis put them on. And that's all I have to say. You'll read about that. That's a great story in itself. My buddy Lou Davis, who worked with me for a little while. But there's Billy at the shop. And it's like he's never left. He's always been by my side. There he is, much older at the age of 2. Plus, when I moved into Hilltop Plaza, you see the benches are brand new, and I was pretty proud of it, and so is Billy.
Oh, I love that.
Billy. That's at the Broadway shop. He's holding a bass saxophone owned by Garth Hudson of the band.
Oh, wow.
And there's Garth there after a concert with Jacob Dylan. Garth was a last-minute guest and played accordion at that show in Woodstock. Me, Billy, and Mary Alice went down to sing it, of course, and it was a great show.
Oh, so fun. Oh, my God.
There's
so cool that you guys get to have all those memories together.
Oh, it's tons. The memories are endless, so you can see why I wanted to write a lot of this down. And this is the shop before the renovation. And there's Billy, a recent picture of Billy, and still at it. He hasn't quit on it yet.
That's good. That's a good thing. So yeah, and I have to say, you have an incredible way of describing the people in your stories. As I was reading, I took a little note and I was like, it feels like they're characters in the story that is your life, which is really cool. And even the way you describe the food, I feel like I'm there and I can smell it and I can taste it. It's incredible. I really like it. So yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm wondering if you had did you keep a journal at all, or did you just kind of pull these right out of your head when you were like, I guess I'm going to start writing this?
It's just fond memories. And every writer's workshop I've ever attended, and incidentally, I've attended 2 workshops right at the Saratoga Library years ago, which was a great help. But if I ever approached an author and I asked them, so can you give me any tips? And they all would say the same thing, write for yourself. And so I try to take that to heart and to write for myself. And that means you write for yourself and then you read it like you're somebody else. So that's what I would try to do, read it back to myself. You know, here's a picture of myself and my daughter Meredith at the 907 19th Street. Now, when I think of 907 19th Street, I think of that there was a bit of a rotting wood smell in that shop because the roof was bad for many years. It was fixed, but you still had the smell in it. And so you had that sweet smell of rotting wood. And
oh my God.
then you have the boar oil and the key oil and the oils mixed in with that. And then you have the smell of coffee in the morning with, you know, I'd often listen to Bach and it would intertwine with all the smells. And when I'm in 19th Street, I think of that. And so that's what I would try to write. I want the person to feel what I feel emotionally about that shop.
Yeah. Oh man. I love that.
Now, here's another good example. I put this in because I love this staircase. This staircase leads to the music room in Holy Spirit in Los Cobos, Haiti. You know, imagine 100 kids running up and down these stairs, getting their instruments and then running to the rehearsal space. But as you ascend these stairs, this is what you see at the top of the stairs. There's no railing, nothing. You see the mountains over the roofs of the local homes. And if you could see the panoramic view, you would see the mountain range go for miles and miles on either way. So it's literally like walking on air. If you're not looking down at the stairs, your body is seeing this.
You're floating, yeah.
you see the smoke in the background. That's the burning of fires for cooking and whatever.
Wow. Yeah. See, even then, even you talking about the smell of the wood and the smell of the fires burning, I think you just have a heightened sense of that. And that's, I mean, I feel like you're a natural writer because of that. That's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Because I don't think that everybody lives their life making mental notes of that kind of thing, you know? So I love that. So I have to ask, because I'm a Dave fan, I have to ask a question about Jeff Coffin, naturally. There he is. And you told me that great story, and it's in your book too. And I wondered if you could tell me. I think it's one of the greatest ones about driving him to SPAC. I just love hearing you tell that story.
That is a great story. I have a lot of good Jeff's stories. And let me begin by saying Jeff is a wonderful, kind person. I mean, just a genuine, nice person. He appreciates all his fans. He never takes anything for granted. And he's very happy to be your friend. And he's a great guy. So anyhow, the story you're talking about is 1 year, the band came into town and they didn't have accommodations in town for whatever reason. So they stayed outside of town. And he said, Bill, I can't come to the shop. But, you know, I can't walk down to my shop, but the tour bus is willing to drop me off on Union Avenue. And, you know, and I'll walk down. So I went up and I met him. And of course, he jumps off the tour bus and everybody greets him, and all the Dave fans that are in the sidewalk and whatever. So he walked down. I did a few things to his instrument. We went across the street to Thai Garden, had some soup. And then he said, will you drive me to the venue? And I went, wow, yeah, sure. Why not? So we hopped in my Prius and he put his horns in the back seat and we went down Broadway. And as many of us know, Saratoga transforms into a huge Dave Matthews party, you know, hours before the show. And we're going through all these hordes of people getting ready for the show and having a good time. And here I am driving Jeff through all of them. And they have no idea, of course, Jeff's in the car.
Oh my God.
So we finally get to the outskirts where the bottling plant is. And of course, the man at the checkpoint recognizes Jeff and says, welcome back, Mr. Coffin. And so we went down towards the driveway. And just as we went down to the entrance where the gates are for the backstage area where the tour buses are, there was about 200 people there. Of course, they spot Jeff and start screaming and cheering. And
Oh my God.
Jeff looks at me and says, Bill, they recognize you, wave. So
Oh my God.
I would love to see one of those pictures and the look on my face because, there was, dozens of cameras going off and everybody's
Yeah.
picture of Jeff. And of course I'm driving. But,
You're driving just like, whoa, how did I get here? Oh my God. That's great. So that whole thing kind of ties into the next question I had for you, which is you meet all of these incredibly talented people. And I feel like you're very good at keeping your cool. I think I'd be less cool at keeping my cool. So I'm wondering what that's like for you. Do you still get a little bit nervous, or do you just kind of roll with it now? You're a little more used to it. How do you deal with that?
Well, I never take it lightly because some of these people are really my musical heroes growing up. I mean, Chicago, Jethro Tull, some of these great bands, Peter, Paul, and Mary. These are people I listen to, and they help me get out of ruts. They made me feel good when I was feeling bad. All of that, and so as I met them, I was certainly thrilled. But then the technician thing kicks in, and I'm here for them. So you have to kind of lose the starstruck attitude, if you will. This is Nick Rignola. I was in business a week, and there was not a school, there was not a music store that would answer my call or give me a call back because I was just a new, young 19-year-old kid saying, "I've got my diploma, I'm ready to fix instruments." And doesn't work that way. You got to get some sort of reputation before somebody trusts you, of course. But I called Nick because Nick was a friend of my teacher, Jim Gebler, and Jim said, "Call Nick Rignola. Just let him know you have a shop in town." And I don't know who Nick Rignola is. I don't know he's world famous and 50 recordings out there. So I called up Nick and he said, "I'll be right over, man." And he came over. He says, "I got a spring, it needs to be fixed." And the rest is history, as they say. He was always very gracious. He sent me a ton of work for his colleagues. And weeks later, he sent me J.R. Monros, the great tenor sax player. He had just moved back from Belgium. And I'm working on J.R.'s horn. I'm working on Nick's horn. But none of the schools will come. I did everything backwards. You're supposed to work on that school horns first.
Yeah.
This is a great shot of me, Nick, and Garth Hudson in the hat. And especially interesting because there's two genres, two greats from two genres, Nick jazz and Garth Hudson, of course, keyboardist and saxophonist with the band out of Woodstock. And both of these guys were great friends and through my career, and a lot of special memories for sure. Here's another one at a Nick Rignola workshop, and this was at Shaker High School, and the man in the black coat is Mike Smith, who's at the time was the lead alto player for Frank Sinatra and a good friend of Nick, and is a fantastic jazz alto player, and the gentleman with the beard is Frank Serpico, who had taken a liking to the saxophone in my early career. Now Frank was made famous by trying to fight police corruption back in the 70s, I believe, late 60s, early 70s, when he was caught up in a bad drug bust, and he was shot in the face, actually, and recovered. Subsequently, somebody wrote a book, Peter Moss, I believe is his name, wrote a book, and then and they made a major motion picture and named it Serpico, played by Al Pacino. So, he was one of my dear customers and friends over the years. This is Ricardo Morales with Jose Franz Ballester. Jose is a Spanish clarinetist. And of course, Ricardo is the principal with a Philadelphia orchestra. Ricardo's a dear friend of mine. He comes in every summer. "Hello, my friend," and gives me a big hug, and we work on all instruments. And how can you be nervous when somebody is that kind? And the way these people are.
Oh,
There's Garth again. Garth would come in the middle of the night because he would.
huh.
That's when he worked best. And we were talking about musicians at night. He
See,
would
yeah.
come in the middle of the night. He'd be watching VH1 and he'd be interviewing Garth on VH1, and he'll ring the doorbell. He says, "Garth, I was just looking at your interview with VH1." He goes, and in his gruff voice, he would say, "Oh, that was the BBC. Next time they came to my house and interviewed me. And next time I'm going to have them meet me at the diner and I'm not going to show up."
Oh my God.
That was his sense of humor. He didn't mean it, of course, but
Of course. That's great.
we would jump in his car. Mary Alice would drive his car over to the diner. He'd sit in the front seat. I would sit in the back seat, and I would say, "This is so strange." Wow.
Oh my God.
This is backstage at the Palace Theater. Ian Anderson had just signed the flute for charity for us. We were going to auction off at the Santa Ball, and here up in Lake George at the Sagamore Hotel. So anyhow, he graciously signed the flute and then started playing a little something from West Side Story. This is our local artist. Do you recognize him? Frankie Foray? Frankie painted this saxophone for me for our not-for-profit Horns for Haiti, for a fundraiser we did at Caffe Lena. And I asked him to do it, and without hesitation, he painted two instruments with slightly different color structures, and I picked this one. And he just gave it to us.
I love that. Yeah. And I've seen it in the window across the street. I love when that's in the window. It's such a cool piece.
It's actually for sale. And of course the funds will go to Horns for Haiti, but I hate to part with it. I love it so much. Someday somebody will say, "How much for that?" And of course, Frankie sells these for $1,500 on his works of art. But he said, "Bill, if you can get $200 for it, sell it. Don't worry about it. Just get whatever you can for it." So it's like, this is Sam the Bugler. Now, for many years, I wished I could meet Sam the Bugler. He plays the trumpet at the track, of course, calls the horses to the gates. And one year, a few years ago, he spotted a cornet in the window, stopped in his tracks and came in and asked about it. And he didn't buy the cornet, but we started talking, became friends, went out to breakfast a bunch of times. And again, he became a good friend. And there's a great story where we were talking. He had this horn in his hand. It might even have been this morning. And I saw Mary Alice get out of the car. Of course, Mary Alice is my wife. And I said, "My wife is coming in the door. Play for her." So she opens the door, puts the trumpet up, goes, da, 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 da. Wow, what a welcome.
Oh my God. That's great. Yeah. You'll never get a welcome like that again.
Never, ever.
Yep.
This is another great trumpet player, Doc Severson, was playing again upstairs in Caffe Lena. And he stopped to look at that same cornet. This was about a week later that I met Sam. So we got talking, and we hung out with me and Billy for a little while. And then the cafe, and Sarah Craig asked me if I wanted tickets to see Doc play. And I said, "Of course." So I called up Sam the Bugler. I says, "Hey, Sam, I got some tickets to see Doc Severson." He goes, "Do I ever?" He goes, "I always want to meet him." And so we went to the show, and of course those two met. The next day, Doc played alongside of Sam, calling the horses to the gate.
Awesome. Oh my God, that's so cool.
Peter Yarrow played upstairs again in Caffe Lena. You can understand why I love this shop. Peter came in to buy a flute for a friend back in New York City, and he wound up buying the flute. And I said, "Let's take a picture." He goes, "Okay, I'll hold the flute, but I don't know how to hold it, so I'll hold it like a guitar." And there he is. A wonderful gentleman. And this is Mark Lindsey of people will remember Paul Revere and the Raiders. Mark was the lead singer with Paul Revere and the Raiders, and many years back in 19th Street, he'd actually had a second home in Kasaki. That's where on Sunday's recording is. And there's a studio there that all they do is remaster old tapes.
Wow.
Go in and overdub some of the vocals on some old Paul Revere and the Raiders tracks and for other bands as well. And we became friends, and the rest is history.
Cool. So now the book is up here. I love all the passes on the cover of it. I think that's a very cool cover. So I wanted to ask if you had a favorite backstage memory.
First of all, when I send the passes to Northshire Press, I sent dozens of them, and they all were like, tiny, so you couldn't even tell what they were. So they chose the ones that are on the book cover, and they all came out great. As far as favorite, every backstage experience was special to me. Hall Notes, this is the oldest pass out of all of them.
Wow.
I was pregnant with my daughter Valerie, and our daughter Valerie, and Michael Vanna and Phil Romano rather called me up. They were former roommates of mine in college, and said they were in Holyoke, Massachusetts with Hall & Oates, and I'd like to come over and fix a trombone for him. And so, sure. So we jumped in the car. This was our first backstage experience, which was really special.
So cool.
And this is one of our last, backstage experiences. This was on Billy's birthday, so this was real special.
Oh.
It was at this concert here. Billy and I went backstage before the show, and then I was working on Ray's alto, and Billy was. I looked over my shoulder, and he has the leak light, and he's putting it down Ray Herman's saxophone. There we go, and they're checking for leaks. So that was a real proud moment for myself and my son, and Billy had a hell of a birthday that night.
Oh, yeah, that is a heck of a birthday.
Later on, this doesn't always happen where there's a meet and greet afterwards, and there was a meet and greet after the Chicago show. They were also headlining with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and this is the lead singer for Earth, Wind, and Fire with Mary Alice and my daughter Jennifer. And those guys were great. I got to meet the horn section for Earth, Wind, and Fire, which I've always been a huge fan of. Yeah. So, and it was great. And I got to say, the night before, they were playing in Toronto. And at the end of the show, the two bands get together, and the two trombonists from each one of the bands were doing a zigging and zagging. Well, somebody zigged when they should have zagged, and the two trombones hit together and knocked off one of the water keys. So I fixed that the next day. They were playing in Saratoga the next day, and so they called me up, and you see the results. We had a great
my God. That's so funny. It's like, normally I'd think about you just fixing, I got a sticky key or something, but it's like, no, we whacked trombones together. Can you fix this? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I also love, there's so many just like coincidences, happy accidents, whatever you want to call them, that just seem to happen over the entire course of the book and like your life. And the chapter on Bobby Strickland, I loved that whole there. Yeah, there's the picture there. I loved that whole story. So I'm just wondering if you ever had a moment where you were like, is this not going to come together? Or did it just seem to fall into place every time?
Well, I don't know if you ever heard the power of attraction. If you think positive things will happen. If you're a bummer things are going to happen. It's just the way of the universe, it seems. And it's what I've noticed, at least. I've always wanted to work on Todd Rundgren's saxophone's player's horn. I was always a huge fan. I said, someday I'm going to work on Todd's saxophone player's horn. And sure enough, one day Garth called me out from Woodstock, and he said, Bill, I've got a friend. He needs some sax work. Will you help him out? And I said, yeah, sure. Who is it? He says, Bobby Strickland. He says, he's the sax player for Todd Rundgren. And I went, yes.
There it is.
There is Bobby in my shop at Hilltop Plaza. And And so that's one of the many stories of attraction that I seem to stumble on. And Bobby's story is just as unique and just, he has a wonderful story about how he met his wife and looking for these special saxophones that he and his dad tried to hunt down, never could find them. And then after his dad passed away, he found these 2 saxophones, and then the story unfolds from there. You got to read it. It's a great story.
Yeah.
It's been done
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite chapters. So then it's really cool too when you see all the different pictures of all the different places in your book, all the different locations you've had over the years. And I'm wondering if you have one that you're maybe a little more attached to than another, or just specific memories in different places. Like, what do you feel about all of them?
They're all special. Now there's my first shop with my daughter Valerie. Is when my children were very young. Valerie, I don't think she even realized that I worked in this shop. I think she thought I just did it for fun, and she was also right. I did it for just fun, and the kids just came into the shop were just, they were always a joy. This is our Broadway shop, and we skipped Hilltop Plaza there, but this was my 3rd shop, and this is of course my Caffe Lena shop before they renovated the building. I love this picture because it shows the old Beverly's restaurant. Of course, Mimi's is now, and you might even still say the comic book store on the sign, if I'm not mistaken.
It totally does. Spa City Comics. Yeah, I never noticed that until you just said that. Yep. Wow. That's really cool. And even the building is still, I forgot that the building used to be purple, the bottom half of it. I totally forgot about that. Yep.
There's a Frankie Flores trumpet in the window, by the way. I was showing it off for him.
Oh, cool.
Early on when I first moved there. And there's a classic Caffe Lena double doors.
Yep.
Those doors, by the way, and they're up in the room.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're upstairs now. Yep, that's cool. Very cool. Great. So, then you have this great picture of you and Mary Alice, outside your first store, I think. I love that. I think that, oh my God, what a great picture. And I noticed you dedicated the book to her. So I was just kind of wondering what it is about her that kind of like maybe pushed you or inspired you, or what is it about the two of you that clicks and works and, that kind of thing. Cause you've been through all of it, it's really cool to see.
We have for sure. To say that Mary Alice has been supportive in my career is a gross understatement. As a 15-year-old high school girl, she encouraged me to go to college. She encouraged me to start a business, and she's been my confidant ever since. Now,
and what you told me that she told you something in high school, kind of just an offhand comment.
Yes.
Yeah. I love this.
Mary Alice, well, she has this wonderful sarcasm sometimes that's very playful, and she just said, "Oh, by the way, now realize she's 15 years old. I think I'm 16, but soon to be a man at 17." And she had said that, so I don't want to marry anybody that doesn't go to college. And I says, "Well, I'm going to go to college then,
Oh my gosh, love that.
And okay, you saw us in front of our first shop, and this is our recent shop, our current shop, and this is 40 years later. And I love those two pictures because they're bookend pictures for sure. And if you look carefully, you can see Ken Drum with the cap in the back, and he's a longtime friend, Barry sax player with the Out of Control Rhythm and Blues Band, and he helped me with the book.
Oh, wow.
And you also see Sal, the bartender from Hattie's there.
Yep.
With the glasses.
Yeah, that's great. I know we were talking about this, but I just love, like, you just talking about Hattie's, and you've been talking about Caffe Lena so much, and just I love the connection that we have on our little street. I feel like Phila Street is such a cool block of just different shops and like really nice people. And I just feel like we're a really cool little collective unit of things there.
It's so true. It's a great
Yeah.
street. Richard Sandler just recently came into my shop. Now, Richard is a photographer that frequents Yaddo quite a bit. And that's how I met him. He was staying at Yaddo, and stumbled into my shop one day, and that story is in the book as well. But I was working on his story. He says, I'll get lost. I'll be back in a little while. So he comes back. He goes, I love this street. He says, I never made it past the street. He went up to Lyrical Ballad and Impressions up at the top of the street. And
Yep.
he said, this is the greatest street. I love this street. And if you think about it, the restaurants alone.
Yeah.
From to my left, as I walk out my door, you have the Italian restaurant, you have the Thai restaurant across the street. You have Hattie's, which is world famous. American Bistro is, if you would call it that. I mean, just spectacular.
Yes.
Bakery and cafe.
It's dangerous having that so close.
Oh, it's way dangerous. I tried to get them to put a hole in the wall just with a little door so I could grab my muffin and coffee, but they could have switched it. And then you have, restaurants up the street. You have Irish restaurant. You have the French crepe restaurant. The Middle Eastern restaurant. This is on Phila Street.
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, I know even before we decided to do any of this, one of the first things that you said to me, the feedback that you were getting was that people were saying that they were surprised about your faith. And I consider myself a pretty spiritual person. So I always love to ask this question to anyone else that I know who has faith is how did it start? Like, where did that come from? Did you go to church when you were young? How did that kind of cultivate over the years?
Well, I did go to church when I was young. Sometimes I was dragged to church, but I always try to get something out of it. And I was an altar boy and all that. But I really don't think my faith grew until I was an adult. And Mary Alice and I would just started bringing our kids to church, kicking and screaming sometimes. But a faith that you could live with. How do I say this? In other words, not shouting out, just try to live by it and just try to have faith in all the things you have to come up with it, come across in life. And I really can't imagine doing this all over again without faith. I just don't think it would happen. So something you have to recognize and embrace, and it is a gift if you can get it. If you can receive it or if you can give it.
Yeah.
I think I'm safe to say that Mary Alice gave it to me, and I just followed her lead.
Oh, yeah. I love that. So now I kind of want to get into Haiti too, because that's such an important part of what you do. So you haven't been able to be there for about 2 years now because of COVID. So I'm wondering, is there anything you've been able to do without being able to physically be there? What's been going on?
Well, it's amazing that even though I haven't been there in 2 years, a lot has happened in that time. We've always kept in touch with our friends in Haiti. I established a non-for-profit that the board is made up of friends and family, and that was we did that about 2 years ago. We got incorporated through the state, and then this time last year, pretty much right to the date,
Wow.
we were approved for the nonprofit tax exempt status. So we're an official non-for-profit now.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick story on that is, here's 2 years and I'm starting to wonder, I'm saying, God, is this it? I mean, did I do my thing in Haiti and now I let it go? Because this is not happening anymore.
Yeah.
I applied for the non-for-profit, no word from my IRS. I mean, And I pretty much, forgot about it. And then one afternoon I was at the shop and I kind of decided maybe I should just let go of this. It's not happening anymore. Within about a half an hour, Billy called me up and said, "Dad, you got a letter from the IRS. They just approved your non-for-profit."
Oh my God.
So I said, "Okay, I get it."
There, all right. Yes. I know. I feel like that happens a lot too. The second you kind of, you let something go and you're like, all right, well, maybe it wasn't going to happen. It's like, boom, then it falls into place. I feel like that happens a lot.
And if I may, quickly, the young man in the blue shirt in the center is Mayan Pierre. He's my protege, and he has attended every one of my workshops in Haiti. In fact, the last several, he's been my assistant.
Wow.
Teach younger kids. He had traveled to a parish in southern Haiti. He was teaching on his own, and this is a
oh my
class
gosh.
he was given teaching band instrument repair. So I'm quite proud of him, and he was going to try to be with us tonight. So if you see, I can't see who's attending, but if you see Mayan, give a shout out to Mayan. He's an extraordinary man, and young, but still, geez, I'm quite proud of him. These two gentlemen want to start their own business. They're doing so well. Since my last visit, they've been repairing horns for other churches and schools in the area, and they just haven't stopped. They've exhausted all the supplies, and we just sent down another box, and I think I have a picture of it. There it is. They were due to receive this box today, and so let's hope that they get this, because to deliver this box into the remote mountains of Haiti is going to be quite an undertaking. I'll be very happy when it reaches them.
Yes.
But in that box, there's a toolbox chock full of tools, a lot of them that were donated by Mike Sussman, the professor at UMass, a clarinet professor at UMass. Retired. When he retired, he had all these tools that he used to work on his students' instruments, and just a whole box full of tools. And so that went into the toolbox, plus a lot of stuff me and Billy put in there. And hopefully they can start their own business now.
Oh my gosh. That's so exciting. That's so cool. Holy cow. All right. Well, I believe we're at the end of the interview portion of this. So yeah, thank you guys all for being here. And if you have questions, throw them in the chat, and we'll get to those. Yeah, this is great. Thank you, Bill, so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
I know I've loved being able to do this. Getting to reading the book is just such a treat. I don't know how many of you have or haven't read the book, but you got to do it. It's great. The stories are it's incredible.
I have to thank the library. They went on five copies right away, and so you can access it at your library. I know there's a couple down at Clifton Park Library.
Cool.
And I have to thank the library for being there for our community. And I'm not talking just for my books. I actually attended a couple of book workshops there several years ago, and when Billy had to do his senior project in high school, they took him under their wing and brought him into the research room and helped him out. It's a great library. We're so lucky to have it.